Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss the 1972 film The Last House on the Left, starring Sandra Cassell, Lucy Gratham, David Hess, Fred J. Lincoln, Jeremy Rain, and Mark Schaefer, and directed by Wes Craven. I have seen the remake before, and that's what I'm going to review next week. But this original, I have never seen it once in my life. But let's see how it goes. Let's get started. Mary Collingwood, played by Sandra Cassell, has a birthday on the day the movie takes place at, and her parents are concerned that she's going to a bad neighborhood in New York City with a friend she feels safer with, Phyllis Stone. And I get why this movie's called The Last House on the Left. It's because Mary lives on the last house on the left, and Mary and Phyllis are on the way to New York, and some murderers named Junior Stillo and some other guys I don't and as the crew who are I'm gonna just call them the village assholes throughout the show. And I don't mind these characters. It's just the acting is really bad. And I get the impression Wes Craven isn't very good at checking performances on the actors. Junior lets Mary and Phyllis up to the village assholes when they want to grab grass to smoke, but capture them as hostages for rape and operating. Did say the following term events are true, which I don't believe, but what I believe is this can happen to anyone, as Wes Craven is dealing with a thing that can happen to anyone in real life. For example, one of the village assholes rapes Phyllis while Mary is watching, which is very uncomfortable. And despite they have knives, why can't you just help her? It's ridiculous. The next days, the parents are worried about Mary isn't home yet, and so they call the theater where the concert is at was taking place. Meanwhile, the village assholes go have the girls in the trunk of the car, and I honestly get the impression this movie is about rape, and that's an uncomfortable subject for me, in my opinion, anyways. While the car has a breakdown, they get the girls in the forest as Mary realizes she's just about home because she recognizes the mailbox, which is a coincidence. And the village assholes tortures Phyllis to piss her pants, or else Mary gets cut and asks Phyllis to punch Mary. Meanwhile, Junior tells them to stop, and the music in the background is so distracting. They take off Mary's clothes and the woods, and I don't like what I see on the screen because it feels cheap despite it was from the 1970s. Phyllis makes a run for it, and she kept the chase going for the longest time, which did feel rather entertaining, I guess. While Mary gives Junior the nickname Willow, which is kind of amusing, and begs him to go with her to her father, who can fix him. And I don't believe he wanted to get fixed, and the writing and the dialogue is unbelievably bad. The village assholes catch up to Phyllis and kill her and get her down senselessly. So she stays dead. Meanwhile, the cops go to the car and runs out of gas, excuse me. So it's going to take a while for the cops to catch up with the village assholes. And when the village assholes cut Phyllis, and the scoring is so bad in that scene. Mary helps Junior get away with her, but they catch them and cut Mary and rape her, which is a horribly disturbing scene, by the way. And Mary tries to get away from them in the water, and they shoot her dead. And the song in the background sounds horrible. The music in this movie is terrible. I can't stand any further. Meanwhile, the cops are hitchhiking from people who hate cops, and a lady with a bunch of chickens on her truck, which is a bad timing thing, I should say. The village assholes arrive at the parents of Mary to stay the night without realizing that they're dealing with until they're in one of the bedrooms and they eat their food and the parents notice some bandages on their heads versus the way they act. They don't have a backup plan, which come on, isn't that so freaking obvious? While Junior is having nightmares, wants to be fixed, and the mother notices the necklace as on Junior's neck, and she sneaks into one of the bedroom and finds out they killed Mary, and they have blood on their shirts, and she takes the father out to tell him about that, about Mary's death, and their plan is to kill the village assholes, which did feel a little bit cliche. One of the village assholes goes up to the mother and rapes her while the father sets up booby traps and gets the gun to shoot their asses, which for its time it's fine, but after Rambo comes out, it feels like they're going Rambo on their retarded asses. The mother cuts off one of the village assholes' dick off, and others hear him screaming, and the father fights one of the village assholes, and Junior tries to shoot the village assholes, but instead shoots himself, and the father comes out with a chainsaw in the basement and kills him with the cops. Enter at the nick of time, and the village bitch, I'll say, gets killed by the mother with the knife, and as a climax, it felt very cheap in my opinion. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 4.6 out of 10. The score was distracting, the music was horrible, the acting was bad, and it looked rather cheap for 1972, and to be fair, this could happen in real life. The movie was uncomforting as well as very pulpy, which makes me worried about next week, as it's a longer movie and has an unrated cut I have to watch as well. So I will be back next week, and thank you guys for joining me, and until next time, let's go home.